Oh, no worries. It's not like it's not right in y'all's way, so sorry about that. We're so full, not too many options. That ought to be alright.
They're saying that for smokers, if you take B complex, it's regenerating the lungs. And I need that if I don't smoke cigarettes. But I thought that was interesting, and I asked the pharmacist about that, and he didn't confirm it per se, but he just was like, there is evidence that it does work, but I can't tell you that yes, why it's, you know, it's going to cure you or anything like that.
Ryan that sat next to you at brunch the other day. Ryan sat next to you at brunch. I figured you can't bring it in the car. I'm like, well, I know that. Yeah, Monday we all went up to Lisa's. I went and got my cupcakes. They're all at Lisa's store. So my freezer is full of cake and cupcakes. Then when it's southern season, you heard us talking about it. I don't know what kind of cake it was, but it was the best thing I've ever had in my life. It was like white, the lightest white frosting ever. And then it had chocolate, like shaved chocolate all the way down the side. And it was chocolate cake. And it was a piece of chocolate. So every bite. And then happy 21st anniversary of your 29th birthday. Like that. But the cake, he took half of it on Tuesday, and I said, "You want any more of this? So cut it up."
Oh, well,
we have a few more people I know who are coming. Darla Moore has left the Masters to come back so that she could pay tribute to Dick tonight, but she hasn't gotten here yet. I want to welcome you. I'm Ann Cleveland, the Executive Director of the Library Society. I want to start off by thanking Mary Ellen and Charlie Way and John and Ellie Carifa, who helped reach out to a much broader group of people. How many of you have not been to the Library Society before? Well, that's okay. No. There are. I was hoping we would be able to broaden the scope of people who discover this wonderful place. For you newcomers, this is the second oldest circulating library in America. It was started in 1748. Its boards helped found the College of Charleston, the South Carolina Historical Society, and America's first museum. It was started by 19 young men who wanted to avail themselves of the latest publications, scientific publications in history, art, natural history, science, literature that was available, and so they established relationships in London. They collected history, science, technology, classical and modern literature, and very quickly became the intellectual and cultural hub of the city. Its members hosted social and political events, as well as I said, scientific and natural history experiments. They had regular dinners that some of which started at 11 in the morning and lasted until way past my bedtime. But basically, the society welcomed people who wanted to improve their minds. Again, they were ahead of their time. They were the Enlightenment in America. And to put it in perspective, because I was a teacher for a long time, these young men in 1748, to prove they were ahead of their time, the person that most of us associate as the quintessential intellectual, cultural icon in American history is Thomas Jefferson. He was only 5 years old when this Library Society was founded. You can see why it made perfect sense that the Founders Award should be going to Dick Jenrette tonight, and that the first keynote speaker should be Steve Schwarzman. Now, the library initially was housed in people's homes, and I've always joked that after 10 years, there must have been a wife who said, I'm not putting up with this anymore. And so it moved to the second floor of Gabriel Maniga's liquor warehouse. It probably got more foot traffic, but unfortunately, it made it much more vulnerable to fire, and most of the collection was lost in a fire in 1798. It finally, in 1914, the board decided they needed a building truly for a library. And so this building, we are celebrating in 2014, the 100th anniversary of the library having its home base here. Like many of Dick's beautiful homes, what's most important is what is inside. And I'll say that 4.5 years ago, when Steve Gates convinced me to take this job, I questioned whether libraries were still relevant in the digital age in which we live. But I will tell you that the story example that I've given a number of times, so those of you who come here are going to be bored, but my mother came home from many years in Asia and sat at our Apple IIgs and wrote her memoirs. And I'm sure if I could pay somebody enough money to find a way to read those old floppy disks, I would have access to what she wrote, but it would take too much. It's gone until somebody figures out how to read those old disks. If I had a hard copy, it would be right here. I'm not worried. In fact, I'm continually encouraged that libraries and books, the written word, will continue to thrive. Now, a year ago, in fact, it was April a year ago, I was trying to think, how do you celebrate the 100th anniversary of this building? Should I find some amazing architect or, speaker? And Ginny Bush and Warren Schwarzman, who are dear friends, and I'll get to that in a second, we were up at Milford Plantation, and the light bulb went off. What better person to pay tribute to than somebody who's had a significant influence on the buildings in this city? I think a lot of us believe that tourism, the whole tourist industry, dates back to 1970 when Dick redid the the Mills House. Without a decent hotel, you're not going to have tourism. And the Mills House made a difference. The Roper House obviously has made a difference. And so I thought, this is great. Of course, I had to convince Dick, who in his modest way said, no, I've had enough awards, I don't need any more awards. And I said, yeah, but this is going to be different. Then I thought, who do I get to help praise Dick that would be a significant person? Well, Steve Schwarzman came to mind. Of course, it helped that I was with Warren and Ginny. But actually, I don't go back as far as Warren, but my relationship with Steve goes back to 1967 because he was my older brother's roommate in college. And I can tell you all about the fact that he went to Yale, went to Harvard, is co-founder and CEO of the Blackstone Group. He's chairman emeritus of Lincoln Center, obviously a philanthropist. He's given money to the New York Public Library, and last year launched the Schwarzman Scholars Program in Beijing, which, given that I grew up in Asia and was bilingual in Mandarin, was very important. And I thought, again, another tie. The reason that I had the chutzpah to call Steve was because we had gotten to know Warren and Ginny we got to know them because our daughter went to a dinner party with her husband and called us and said, "Oh, we have met the cutest couple. They're your age." And then she said, "And he is Steve Schwarzman's brother." Well, she knew who Steve Schwarzman was, and this is where I'm going to digress a little bit, to tell you that in addition to all of his accomplishments, this story will tell you what kind of person he is. Our older daughter got married 10 years ago, and she got a letter, a really sweet letter from Steve saying, "I saw your announcement in the paper, you must be Ann and Will's daughter," you know, and proceeded to congratulate her. And I thought, oh, that's so sweet. I mean, we had not kept up over the years since 1967, I will admit. But the combination of having had that sort of outreach, that sweet gesture, and having Warren and Ginny as dear friends, I said, would you call and ask Steve if he would come help pay tribute to Dick? Because Steve's first job out of Yale was working for Dick. They called. It was April 2013. What they didn't realize was that I don't know whether you were on your plane or you had just landed in Beijing. He was about to launch the Schwarzman Scholar Program. And so he was a little busy. But when Ginny said, this is the plan, could you come next year and help us honor Dick, he said, count me in, instantly, no thought. So we had a plan, and I'm not going to steal his thunder because I know he's got probably stories about Dick that I don't know. But Dick is the perfect person to be the first recipient of our Founders Award because he does embody all those ideals of the founders. And Steve is the perfect person to give our first keynote address. Thank you.
Well, it's really terrific to be here. Talk about things weaving in from your past. So my roommate at Yale was a fellow named Jeff Walker, and he's a very nice guy, and I guess it was sophomore year. He said, well, why don't you come down to Columbia, South Carolina, and meet my family? And I didn't even know there was a Columbia, South Carolina. And let alone, you know, I mean, South Carolina, I've heard of, but so I went there, and they treated me so nicely. It was really a lovely thing. And we went to, I remember we went to a country club, and there was a very attractive sister who had nice blue eyes, and she was hanging out in the pool with this sort of muscular-looking, tall, lean guy named Will Cleveland. And I sort of said, well, I guess this is how it goes in the South. We don't have all these good-looking people in Philadelphia. And you know what? And there it is. And here I am. And I wouldn't be here without some of the pieces of luck in my life that's changed my life. And it's had Dick woven into that fabric. Before I start on that 1 second, I want to just say something about libraries. This is apparently my library day because I met this morning in New York with Andy Hamilton, who's the head of Oxford, and he had with him the head of the Bodleian Library, which is like this. It's the library. And they brought with them all these amazing, neat things, like the Magna Carta. And all of Shakespeare's works in the first book in which they were published, and some other book which was adapted from Ptolemy's writings, where they had a map of what the world looked like at that time was a bunch of water, all around some looked like some islands. And in the front of the book, when you open it, there was a little frontispiece with like a crest. And I said, I think I know that crest. Isn't that like Spain? And they said, yes, that's the crest of Ferdinand, King Ferdinand, and Queen Isabella. And I said, yeah, I've heard of them. And they said, well, this book, they bought this book in whatever it was, 1490 or something, one of the first big books published in new technology, which was called printing. And so all of those companies were basically in Germany, right? The Germans owned another, sort of engineering, technological, type of business. And so the king and queen had this, and this venture capitalist came to visit them, Christopher Columbus, looking for money. and apparently, I mean, you can't make this stuff up, right? That they turned to that page in the global map, and he showed them where he was trying to go, and they funded him without a syndication. And I basically spent an hour as the head of the library was explaining all these astonishing things, and we all sort of got here intellectually through the journey through the Renaissance that these people had, and libraries are like really important things, whether they get digitized or whether they don't get digitized, and they'll be both. It's really an amazing thing. So to be here in the second oldest American library is like a super deal, because I just went from the oldest UK one with a lot of their treasures. So it's a big library, David. But I'd say that without Dick Jenrette in my life, I wouldn't have ended up doing whatever I did. Different people affect other people's destinies in a way that is unanticipated. So I went to Yale. I was a social science major. I never took an economics course. I didn't even know there was something called accounting. After school ends, it's like a bad moment, because you have to stop bullshitting and you have no talent. And I met somebody in the admissions office who knew Dick's partner, Bill Donaldson, and said, why don't you go down and meet him? And so I went down and was waiting in the lobby. And all people in finance, for those of you who are not in finance, they always keep you waiting. And the reason they do it is not to insult you. They always have something more important. It's more timely than you. And so I was in the lobby of DLJ, which Dick started along with Dan Lufkin and Bill Donaldson in 1959. I was up on I think it was the 36th floor at 140 Broadway. And I was looking uptown as far as you could see, and I was kept waiting for about 45 minutes, and they had these beautiful girls, like walking through the lobby. And I was looking at this and I was saying, okay, Papabello shoes, gold scalloped earrings, they got those chartreuse, like ribbed tops. I said, this is like good. And then they had these young guys, all coats off. They're like intense, and they're walking through the lobby. And so, I finally made it to Bill's office, and he says, so why do you want to work at DLJ? And I said, frankly, I've got no idea what DLJ is. But with girls like that, and guys like that, whatever you're doing, I'm in. So he said, well, why don't you go and meet some of my partners? So I went around, I met, most of the partners, and I got back to him at the end, and he said, well, how did your day go? I said, well, actually, it's not how did my day go. I think your partners think you're nuts sending me around. I'm completely unqualified. So he sort of laughed and got back to me like in a few days, and he said, we want to make you an offer. I was waiting to go into the military. for Vietnam War reserves, so I had an indeterminate time period, and they offered me $10,000, which was really like a good thing. And I said, I really appreciate that, but I needed 10.5. and there was this silence. And Bill said, what do you mean 10.5? What are you talking about? I said, well, you know, there's one other guy in the class, it was all guys, last class, all guys at Yale, who is getting $10,000. So I want to be the highest, you know, so they graduate. And Bill said something sensible, like, who cares what you want? So we ended up settling at 10.5. And so I go to work. They give me an office. I was next to Charlie Ravenel. It's Charlie here? Okay. So I had an office next to Charlie Ravenel. He was like a real person. I was like an imposter. And they gave me a secretary. I didn't have a clue. I couldn't read a financial statement. I couldn't do anything. So they sent me up to a restaurant company called Restaurant Associates. And they were in the process of, besides having Four Seasons and other stuff, they had a chain called Zum Zums of blessed memory. And so I didn't know what to do. I was up there alone, so I started asking questions like, how many Zum Zums are you going to open? Like when? What else do you like? We asked somebody, how much do you make with the Zum Zum? It's like Saturday Night Live, right? So I go through all that, and you know, I take some notes, and I got back to the firm. And okay, I did my first thing. And I get a phone call from Dick's secretary. Could you possibly come down and see Mr. Jenrette? And Mr. Jenrette was a little bit, you know, sort of higher than I was on the food chain at DLJ. And so I went down to see Dick. And he's such a kind, lovely man. He said, come and sit down. And so I sat down and thought he was going to reward me for like my first adventure. And he said, what did you do to those people? I said, what do you mean? He said, they're furious at you. And I realized I'd somehow done something wrong, but I couldn't figure out what it was. He said, yes, they said you were asking them for inside information. And I said, well, what other kind of information is there? I mean, how am I supposed to figure this stuff out if I can't ask them a question and they tell me the truth? And he said, yeah, but there are limits to what they can tell you. I said, why? I mean, I don't understand. And he said, because that's the way the rules work. I said, well, I didn't even know there were rules. And you know, so instead of Dick getting angry at me, he basically took me through that. And then I realized I'd never be any good at being a securities analyst, because I actually need to know what's happening. I'm not smart enough to like invent what might be happening. And so Dick would walk around the office at the end of every day. It's very interesting management stuff. And I couldn't figure out what he was doing, except he was nice to everybody. He had an encouraging word for everybody. And what he was doing is he was learning what was going on. It was a small firm. At that time, it was one floor of 140 Broadway and an office building, and then they took like a half a floor below, which was like half empty. So it was basically sort of one floor. And everybody had a relationship with Dick. And he'd taken time just to sit there and listen to what was on anybody's mind. I guess he was like, you know, like a floating Sigmund Freud or something. But he was the glue that kept the firm together. And it didn't matter if you were a super performance person or you were, I guess I was like a negative performance person. And they had big celebration while I was there, which was the 10th anniversary of the firm. So it was started in 59, and this was 69. Man, it was rocking. This was a happening party. They had it at Tavern of the Green. They had a band, and the same girls with the short skirts. and you know, so I was like, you know, I was like a nobody. I was completely dazzled that somebody could actually have a party like this for business. And everybody was happy. Everybody was proud. They were proud to be Dick's firm. And I was like just proud to not be employed. And so at the end of the evening, Dick said to me, remember, these are like hundreds of people at a party. Dick said to me, he said, you've arrived. And since I had so little cash, I was looking for any kind of ride, anywhere. He said, I'll give you a ride home. Where do you live? So we get into, this is the first time I was ever in a limousine. It was one of those ones where your feet sort of go straight up, you know, longer. And so I'm sitting in the back seat with Dick, and Dick's talking about life and work and my future, his life. And we're going down Fifth Avenue, and we're outside of the Sherry Devlin, which is a hotel. And I think he was sitting on the left side, I was sitting on the right side, so I was facing him so I could see the pier and the Sherry Devlin. And Dick said, he said, you know, Steve, New York is the last frontier town in America. And I said, Dick, what do you mean? And he said, you can ride into town, and all you need is the fastest draw, and you'll take over the town. Nobody stands in your way. There are no social inhibitions to success. All you have to do is like come here and win. And it's the best place in the world. And you know, I'm 21 at this time, which I apparently no longer. And I was thinking about that because I didn't know anything about the world. Why would I? Right? And Dick was saying, you know, it's possible for you to be something. And it's possible you just do it with your talent. And it's possible that you can do it right here. And this may be the only place in America that tolerates that kind of openness and meritocracy. And obviously I still remember that. And it turned out to be that way. So I finished my stay at DLJ, which was reasonably ignominious. I contributed nothing to anyone, and I'm sure they were grateful. I left after like 8 months, and you know, I saw John Charleston, who was like was from Exxon, so nobody had met anybody who actually worked because we were all in finance. And I guess I don't know that Dave was there yet. And so I was having an exit interview with Bill Donaldson. And the exit interview is a little cafeteria where you have the plastic trays and the little plastic plates and the plastic forks that when you put pressure on it, they snap. And I said, well, why the heck did you hire me? I mean, this is like a waste of your money. And he said, I don't know, I got a hunch. He said, I think one day you're going to run my firm. And I sort of like stopped and I said, what? And he said, yeah, I got a hunch. I made a bet on you. And I said, you know, these DLJ people, they're really weird. They're really weird. And so I left, lived my life, went to Lehman Brothers, 1982, I got a call from Dick. And he says, Steve, do you have some time? And I said, Dick, for you, I always have time. And so I went over to see him. And Dick was the CEO of the firm at that point, and the chairman, I forget which, but Dick was always Dick. So he's the senior person, and somebody else has been picked to run the firm. So Dick said to me, he said, Steve, how are you doing? I said, I'm doing fine. Actually, I've learned some stuff, so it's serviceable. And he said, you know, we're having some issues here at DOJ, and I'd like you to come and be president of the firm. And just sat there. And I said, in 1969, I was a complete bozo. And Dick Jenrette wants me to be president of DLJ. And I mean, I was so shocked because every once in a while in your own life, whatever your life, you have these measurement moments where obviously something happened to me, but the idea that Dick would have that much influence in me was like really amazing, and I told him I wasn't up for it. You know, I wasn't accomplished enough. I wasn't old enough. I didn't know enough about his part of the business. And he said, no, I think you could do this. And I said, no, I don't think I have the gift. I don't have the ability to do this at my age because, you know, 1982 was 30-something, early 30s. And, you know, you just don't know that much at that time. So Dick found somebody else, and that worked. And at a later point, you know, the parent company of Dick's firm got into trouble, and the Equitable Life Insurance Company. And they asked Dick to come and run it. Well, you know, for somebody who'd been raised in the investment banking business, investment business, to run an insurance company, which was one of the most prominent insurance companies in the world, is, even though I guess Dick's father was in the insurance business and Dick knew a little something about insurance, but probably not too much, that the idea of doing that was like a mega stretch. He didn't have to do that. It wasn't necessary. He could have said no. But because he is the kind of person that he is, he's a caring person, he's a loyal person, he's a thoughtful person, he's an institutional person in the best sense, that he basically went and did that job with this company in terrible shape. And like all things, Dick, he solved that problem. And that company became healthy. And I think that was a little bit of a lonely time for him because, you know, he had left his other friends, you know, sort of behind just to do, you know, really the right thing. And in the process, he's accumulating houses. He loved houses. When I was at DLJ, he took me to his house in New York. It was sort of somewhere in the Lower East Side. And I mean, I walked into this place and it was like a museum. And I said, hey, what's the deal? Looks like a museum. He said, well, it's a house. And he said, I really like houses. And I like restoring houses. And it gives me a real sense of satisfaction. And I've watched Dick accumulate these magnificent places, even wandering outside the United States for a bit. And every one of them is magnificent. Every one of them is a jewel. And it's an amazing legacy that most people don't have. They don't believe things like this, and they don't have people have the opportunity to experience beauty mixed with history. And when we went public, DLJ, by the way, was the first investment banking company to go public, and it happened right before I got there. But since I didn't know what stock was, it didn't mean much. And we were the first company at Blackstone that went public in our industry. So it's like, we're like followers. So, you know, one of the things you need when you go public is you need directors. Apparently that's part of the deal. And so in 2002, when our firm was growing, I wanted to bring somebody in because I couldn't handle the whole load of the firm and continue growing at the same rate. And I ended up hiring a guy named Tony James. And Tony was hired by Dick Jenrette. And Tony was, I guess, the number 2 guy at DLJ, and he and I have been working together really productively. It's good to be in business with somebody who's smarter than you. I recommend this. And Tony is really fantastic. So we were sitting around and saying, okay, we need some directors. Who do you think we ought to get? And I said, well, you know, I've got an old business school professor who never thought I was smart. Why don't we get him? And he was the dean of the Harvard Business School. You know, he said yes. Got Jacob Rothschild, who's a friend of mine from London. He's really smart and clever. Good. And both Tony and I looked at each other and said, we got to get Dick. And yeah, let's get Dick. I think I called rather than Tony. And I said, look, Dick, you know, we're like starting an adventure here. We can use some wisdom. We can use some advice. You know, we both think that you're like a terrific person. And would you please do this for us? And ever the gentleman, gracious. He said, well, I'm getting a little old. That was 2007. But if you want me, you know, I could do that. And so Dick's on our board. So I get to see Dick every quarter. And we had one situation where I wanted to do something one way, and he thought we should do it another way. Usually when I have a pretty strong feeling, I'm somewhat difficult to deter. And it doesn't happen that often that I have that strong feeling, but on this one, I did. And Dick said, he said, Steve, I beg to differ with you. I think you're taking too short-term a view on this issue. And basically, you know, we should pay out $50 million. We didn't have to, but some people would make them happy. And he said, you'll get a lot more in return for that 50 that you'd imagine. There was sort of a financial crisis going on, so keeping the 50 would not be a bad idea. And he said, no, the firm's in good enough shape. You can do that, and you're going to be really happy you did that. And so, you know, we struggled with that, not interpersonally, but just as a conceptual issue. And so he managed to make me a little more uncertain. And because I was uncertain, I said, you know, if I'm uncertain and Dick feels strongly, I should do it Dick's way. And I did. And the people we were directing that to have given us billions and billions of dollars subsequently. So it was the right thing. And if you need a friend, if you need a wise person, if you need a mentor, if you need an elegant person to be in your life, Dick Jenrette is that person. And I'm privileged to say that he's all of those things to me. So Dick, thank you.
President of the Board of Trustees of the Charleston Library Society. And the Founders Award was recently created by the Board of Trustees to recognize a person who exemplifies the values of the 19 young men who in 1748 collaborated to promote knowledge and shared learning by founding one of America's earliest cultural and intellectual centers. It is awarded to a person who, through lifetime pursuits, has demonstrated leadership and philanthropy in pursuit of those goals and appreciates the relevance of the past to the present and to the shaping of the future. This first Founders Award is made on the occasion of the 100th anniversary of the opening of this current library building. As you've heard from Steve Schwartzman, Dick Jenrette is the perfect first recipient of our Founders Award. We want the awards to be personal to the recipient and to reflect something special about the library. So this year, our Founders Award is a copy of Dick's book, Adventures with Old Houses, specially leather-bound in our library bookbindery by our own bookbinder, Brian Byler, and inscribed. 2014 Founders Award presented by the Charleston Library Society to Richard Hampton Jenrette with great appreciation, April 11, 2014, Charleston, South Carolina. Dick, please accept our award.
Well, I sort of speaks as well as his comments. I first do thanking Steve and Christine for being here. I want to say what an honor it is for me to receive this first Founders Award from the Library Society. And as far as I know, this is an extraordinary institution, 267 years old. And especially this building that we're in, the society's been here for 100 years this year. Notice Steve in classical architecture. It's well worth the saving. By the way, Steve gave $100 million to your public library last year. So he likes libraries. But anyway, we don't need that much money, but that's Ernie. Yeah, makes it all that money. Anyway, the Library Society is extraordinary. And some of you know, as Anne explained, there have been a lot of pessimists on the books today with the internet, and you can say books are an endangered species today. And yet there are more books being published today than at any time. They keep being published. It's so important that we keep these libraries like this, and these wonderful buildings and houses, not just as a repository of books, but as a dynamic intellectual center. And I think with Ann Cleveland here, that's exactly what you've got. Ann has brought a vitality into it, and it's just exciting for me to see. And anyway, this is indeed, books may be endangered, but I think this institution is not endangered. It's going to go on for it looks like to me it's going to be ready for another 100 years. Steve Schwartzman, Steve, I'd like to thank you and Christine for coming down here and say, we do have a vivid memory. These girls are miniskirts. Steve typifies some things in my Wall Street, 56-year Wall Street career, if you count my period of lifetime. It's been fun to make money. I didn't make as much money as Steve and some of them. But the excitement to me has been seeing a lot of people that either I hired or got to know along the way or encouraged. It's been really exciting to see young people develop. I always got involved in recruiting and the whole way. I mean, I picked John Charleston on the streets of London. He got a classmate in business school. But it's been exciting for me to see people develop. And Exhibit A is Steve Schwartzman. I can't take much credit for Steve. I thought you were going to tell the tale about the time you wanted to drop out of Harvard Business School. Steve was a star student, but after summer at DOJ and all those ministerials and things, he didn't like the Harvard Business School at first. And he called me up one day and said, I'm going to drop out. And I can't remember what you're going to do, Brookings Institute or something like that. Something more intellectual than Harvard Business School. And I sat down and wrote him a long letter, a 6-page letter that night, and invited him down for lunch, showing that I persuaded him not to drop out of Harvard Business School. And he went on to say, you would have succeeded anyway, Steve, I think. That attitude, you want to make $500 more than the highest paid guy. That's the one thing I'm critical for in my life. I think I did help with, along with paying the dividend to the governor of China, which brought in so many more billions of dollars after he graciously paid it. Anyway, we've had a lot of fun, but seeing these young people develop, I've ended up, it's shocking number of them become billionaires. And others that I got to know along the way, even though I was freshman orientation chair with Alex McMillan and got into running class president. Then he became a congressman from North Carolina. We served 11 congressmen. And even the people I heard up here, one become the Episcopal bishop, say after working for me for 3 years, he needed to get religion. But anyway, success is not always measured by money. And I guess the final thing, Ann said, you could just say thank you and sit down. I want to say thank you to the city of Charleston. As many as you know, I was born and raised in Raleigh, North Carolina. When I was at Harvard Business School in New York, but I came to this city that's really changed my life in so many ways. And particularly gave me a lifetime. I can't call it a hobby or something like that. It's almost a way of life. Coming here to Charleston, it's got me, introduced me to historic preservation can be fun and very satisfying and help a whole city to recover. And here I was so, I guess the first time I came here, I should back up and say, Arthur Rivers Ingram, who all of you know, I came down to Carolina Cup from Harvard Business School one year. There was a Charlie Coker who was my roommate. And Arthur sidled up in her tweed jacket from Vassar and said, y'all are going to come to Charleston. So I remember several of us from Harvard Business School came to Charleston. Apparently, Arthur says, Dick, walking out of our house, this is a house on Church Street. I said, one day I'm going to have a house just like this. Well, like some of Steve's comments, I don't remember exactly saying that. But I had that idea. So one day I'm going to have a house like Barbara Rivers' house in Charleston. But anyway, then years later, we had Tug Ravenel, when I joined our firm in New York. He said, we've got some clients down in Charleston. And so I came down here to visit Charles Dewell, who house on the Battery. Was really the first night I spent at Charleston was looking at Charleston property, 21 East Battery, Edmondson Olson house. So Charlie invoked all kinds of parties. And I mentioned in my book, I had a moonlight stroll with Charlie and his wife on the Battery and saw the book house. And he said, this might be considered. The next thing I knew, I was back in Charleston. Then I met the dynamic Princess Edmonds, and so I could see how she literally changed the whole city. She took on a whole section of Ansonville and brought back to the slum. And sadly, she's no longer with us, but some people today don't remember her, but she was the Joan of Arc in my book, to get the city going. And then there were others like Charlie Dewell, who was just a young man taking up a military place without a big endowment. Seeing how Charlie, he has made Middleton Place one of the crown jewels, not of just Charleston, but the whole nation and the world. But seeing some of the work that's going on around here, it's just been very inspiring to me. So it's been a great, Charleston has given me a great hobby. And some of the Wall Street ones, we always had a motto of trying to have fun, you know, and I still believe that. But back in the 1970s, it wasn't so much fun. And but in dark days, I remember leaving Wall Street and going up the edge of Donaldson and looking at khakis and pouring a drink and looking, getting involved in these old houses and, or jumping off a plane and flying down to Charleston, going to road routes by a deck of the road. Just seeing there was something more to life than the stock market going up and down. So I think the habit of historic preservation that Francis Edmonds and Charlie Dewey and others, Pete McGee got going on, helped me keep my sanity during this 56-year period that I've sort of still been involved in Wall Street. But anyway, it's been a lot of fun along the way, and Charleston changed my life for the better. And everyone has been so gracious here. My friend Bill Thompson died. You can't believe how kind and gracious everybody was. Bringing food by, and Cleveland bringing bread by every week. I feel like a welfare case sometimes. But we've had some good times, and so I'm just very honored to be here. I'm looking forward to many more years of being here. I think all of you are terrific. Steve Gates. By the way, it's not all historic preservation. I saw Steve and Laura's new Greek Revival house they built out of Waterfall Valley. You can still build it like that. It's incredible. If you haven't seen Gates' house, it's the greatest. I will pull that out and get to another thing about Charleston. Charleston has the ability to preserve the best of what the past is, but still accept new people and new faces like Steve and Laura coming here, John and Jill Charleston. There's so many new people who weren't born here, but who come here and love the place and have been accepted. So the city gets better every year since I've been coming here. So I congratulate you on living in this wonderful city. And thank you for this award. I'm quite overwhelmed. Thank you, Steve.